It always seems off, but it's on. Who knows?
Look, just like me, this guy is on for the Hungover Podcast, episode 137. Welcome, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about very pertinent information about the Chinese GPS system. They call it BDS, the BeiDou Navigation Satellite System, which seems like it should be BDNSS, but it's fine. They don't even.
It's the Big Dipper in Chinese, man.
That is the Chinese
Or
government
Mandarin.
is swinging around their Big Dipper with this. Let me tell you that. But yes, of course, I'm one of your hosts, Julien.
I'm over here. My name's Yvonne, and we are coming to you live on Twitch. You can check us out on YouTube and listen to us on SoundCloud and iTunes, Google Play, I believe. Many of the places that you can usually get podcasts, and we're there. So, hit us up, rate, review, do whatever. But, that was the past us. We're not going to beg you for things. Just listen in. Just listen in.
But
if you want to join us every week on Twitch to actually participate.
Yeah, you can be part of the conversation. I do want to say, though, one thing I want to promote is that I'm trying to break out our podcast into segments on our YouTube channel now. So if you don't want to listen to the whole thing, I'm trying to break it out into segments that may be interesting to certain people, because we talked about a certain subject matter within like 5-minute video, 10-minute video, let's say. We're breaking out clips of the podcast on the YouTube channel throughout the week, so go check that out if that's interesting to you. Maybe it is. I don't know. We had our first clip go up yesterday. It was about parasocialism. I thought we had an interesting conversation about it. Go check it out. But Yvonne, we start our podcast out every single week by asking each other and discussing, what did you do this week? What are you getting yourself into? You watching anything new? You playing any new video games? Probably not. You doing anything new at work? Did you drink anything interesting?
You underestimate me as the video game player. I did not.
XCOM 2. Okay.
No, I beat XCOM 2, and
many times.
I've been trying to get back. I need a new game. I tried this new SD Gundam game that came out.
SD Gundam? That sounds sick. What is this?
I couldn't start it. I got 8 minutes in and I was like, there are too many things coming at me. Too many, like, oh, because you bought this version of the game, you've gotten this pilot and this suit. And I was just like, oh, okay. But everything's SD Gundam. I wanted like the regular Gundam look.
Gundam.
So I tried it. I got 8 minutes in and I quit.
Was it on? Oh, you got a refund. Oh,
yeah. I got it on Steam.
Yeah.
I literally just played Skyrim.
You're such a sucker for comfort food when it comes to video games, man. It's hilarious. You're playing this 13-year-old game, or even more. Skyrim came out in 2011.
Yet
10-year-old
to beat
game.
it.
Oh,
I have
you
never
haven't beat
Skyrim.
Holy shit. Neither have I, to be fair.
You know how I play video games. So how I play video games, for everyone listening who might not know me as well, is that I do all of the side quests till I get so overpowered and overleveled that I get bored with the main quest, and then I usually give up on the game.
At that point, there's literally no point in playing the game. Yeah. I've tried playing games in the way you play them, and it's hard.
It's the worst.
It's such a bad idea. It's like you're never gonna enjoy the story at that point. The actual story that the developers put everything into.
Like, no, I would rather do 70 missions of like break into this house and steal this gem or cause bedlam in this house
and not pay attention to what you're doing and just like listen to a podcast while you're doing it. You're really good at that. Really fantastic.
I've been listening to Dan Winslow's new book. He wrote one of my favorite modern trilogies, which was The Power of the Dog, The Cartel, and then The Border, I think is the third book. It came out 2019-ish.
Are you listening to this on audible.com?
Audible.
Please
Yes,
sponsor the
on Audible.
podcast.
uh, I have a credit subscription Audible just so that I
Nice.
can give the listeners and or viewers a true relatable topic. Um anyway, it's a very good book, but it's more vignette. I like the three that came before it were really heavily researched. Like the audio versions of those books are like 20 some hours, so they're very thick actual books, and they're super well researched um, investigations into the drug war, how it's affected Mexico very much, but also the United States,
Yeah.
and just the whole width and breadth of the CIA interventions into Central America, into the amount of influence that the cartels have had in politics in the U.S. and in Mexico into the 2000s, and then with the opium epidemic. Those are kind of like the three stages of those books. Really interesting. I love the way he writes. It's very staccato, short, crisp sentences, very visceral. And these vignettes that he's exploring, the book is called, I think it's Broken or Unbroken, but I'm pretty sure it's Broken. Um, and it's powerful. I wish they all kind of connected more in a larger story than just
Mm-hmm.
thematically, but it's a very very tight book. I think putting together such epic novels is probably really difficult, and when you have the words but not the whole uniting scope of the Cartel series, it's probably easier to put them into vignettes like this.
Huh.
But it's really good, and I highly suggest.
Is
I
it
I
non?
really like
It's
him as an author.
nonfiction.
He's good.
It's nonfiction, or is it?
It's fictionalized history for
Okay.
some of it. And this book is more fiction than not. But still, it feels visceral. He was a private eye for a while, and then developed into writing a lot of crime novel-y kind of things. His The Power of the Dog, The Cartel, and The Border are more focused on historical historical fact and bringing those into a fictionalized world. This is more like just the atmosphere and things. Like he does a lot of good research in terms of really grappling with the geography of the locations that he is, and the atmosphere that they have. Like he has one that's based out of New Orleans and Algiers Point and things like that. And he's like, you go down this street to this street to this street, but he's giving you the vibes of kind of the neighborhoods that you're crossing through when you're traveling through the city. It's a really intense read, but I we were listening to it on our way back on a car trip recently, and Laura she was going to fall asleep, but instead just closed her eyes and listened the whole time to the book because it's
Nice.
really very
It's
gripping.
that. It's that good. She couldn't fall asleep.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Um, so that's what I've been doing while I've been playing games and such, other than my usual bout of podcasts. I finished my like third rewatch of Schitt's Creek,
Oh
so
God.
I needed a break.
Oh my God. This guy's
So I went
obsessed with
to a
this show.
novel.
That's
I
cool. That
really
yeah.
I've been obsessed with comfort stuff recently. You're really right. Like XCOM is comforting. Schitt's Creek is like I've been enveloped in this family and these stories, and I really enjoy spending time with them. Kim's Convenience the same way.
Hmm.
Uh, I don't know what it is because I've been stuck in one spot with the same person in my life basically for so many months on end. It would appear that I need adventure more than comfort, but there's something great about it that it's just like I don't know, in this time of everything else feeling like it's out of my hands and out of control, these things that just make me feel warm and fuzzy inside. I've also been unable to fucking run
Really?
to any amount of success because I'm working
Because
50
you're
hours a
busy.
week, and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
really hard to balance
Oh man.
being able to run,
Yeah.
especially when it's so cold, because it takes like 10 minutes to put on winter gear before I go out then I have my run, and then I have to take it off and shower. It's just too hard to
It's
get it
hard
done.
to motivate yourself, um, especially in the winter time. I agree. I remember I tried to when I was trying to run in Syracuse when we went there for college. It was rough in the winter time. It was pretty rough. I would just do it. I would just run in like, I mean, I wasn't running. The problem was, or the difference was, I wasn't running for as long as you go for runs. You go for like 5 mile runs. I don't know how long.
Sometimes, yeah. My
Yeah,
long runs now are 13 miles
I
this week.
I would run like a mile, maybe a mile and a half. So it wasn't anything crazy, but it was
Yeah, that's
literally just
pretty.
to get. Oh my God, it's better than nothing. Shut
I
up.
know, I know, I
Yeah.
totally agree.
So it's like at you could run a mile just in shorts in the cold. So
Oh my
that's
god, I
yeah.
almost completely forgot the important story of the weekend,
Oh
though.
God, here we go. Here we go.
So Laura and I have been getting into winter sports. We
Yeah.
started a few weeks ago with sledding, and then that progressed to downhill skiing, and then that progressed to Laura wanting to try cross country skiing. And we
Yeah.
got skis from her dad that she borrowed, and the boots fit her as well. So we were out there, we were doing our first thing, and I'm like, Laura, look out! There's skiers coming on your left, and she goes, what? Ah! And then slips and falls backwards, and the
Oh
shoes
shit.
rip apart. So
What?
the bottom, which is clipped into the ski, stays in the ski, which goes shooting like 20 feet forward. And Laura's just backwards, like in a heap of poles, and her other ski
Holy
still
crap. Was she all
attached
right?
halfway. She was fine.
Okay.
She was yelling at me for scaring her, but she was
Where
all good.
where again do you guys go skiing?
So
If you don't
this
mind me
this
asking.
this cross country is at Highland County Forest, which is like in Onondaga
Okay,
County,
so
I
it's
think,
kind of
or a
close.
Highland County Park or something like that. So it's a local county park with lots of cross country ski trails. I would say it's very well groomed. So we were just doing a little loop. It was our first time out. It's my fifth time, I think, cross country skiing, and it's Laura's first time. And I was just trying to get her out there and get her used to the movement, and we are doing this small loop. It was almost closing time by the time we got there, but Laura ended up breaking her boots.
Her
So then
boots. Okay, I thought you were gonna say her leg. Oh my god.
we had to replace the boots,
Yeah.
and her ski system was so old that there's nobody that sells boots for that ski system. So we had to get new skis. So,
Damn, that
of
sucks.
course, it's the middle of the winter, so we're calling everywhere. And places are like, "You should really order your skis in the fall." And Laura's like, "I know, you fucking asshole." Just
That's
click.
hilarious.
Um,
Click.
so we figured out that there were boots that fit her out in Utica, which is like an hour so east, like an
Yeah.
hour and 15 east. So we drove out to Utica, and this guy, we called the ski company, and there was only one place in the area that had skis. So we are like, okay. And then that place was south of Syracuse. So we're like, we'll go to
Uh-huh.
Utica, get the boots, and then we'll drive back to south of Syracuse. We'll pick up the skis, and then tomorrow morning we'll go out and ski.
Yeah.
Go out, get the boots. Awesome. I get a new ski jacket. It's great. We come back to the south of Syracuse. We drive up to the location. It's fucking empty. I'm talking like it's derelict. Like there's not even a
That's amazing.
business there. And Laura's like, "Who the fuck did I call?" And so she calls the number and nobody picks up, but the voicemail is the same guy that she talked to. And then I call a different ski company branch, and I'm like, so we're out here south of Syracuse. We're trying to get in." And he's like, "That place has been closed for 3 years." And I told Laura that afterwards. She's like, "Who the fuck did I talk to?" When I call, it's the voicemail to this derelict location. That's the guy I was talking on the phone. She was convinced for 6 hours She had talked to a ghost that day. Meanwhile, I'm fucking with her the whole time, like, I didn't hear anybody on the other side. I heard
Fun to
static. So she was freaking out. She's like, maybe there was a ghost. I
no
don't know. I don't believe in ghosts, but what if
good.
there was? I've heard people talk about paranormal experiences. This is my first paranormal experience. And then she was like, maybe it wasn't a ghost. Maybe I'm just going crazy and hearing things. Like a
Holy
really
shit.
detailed conversation that she called back to. She talked to him twice.
That's
Turns
nutty.
out,
What?
as would be normal, that the during business hours, that phone routes to the Rochester branch. And so we had to end up going to Rochester, which is another hour and some drive
Yeah,
to
fucking
get
rushes.
skis. And then we skied around Rochester at a beautiful Mendon Pond Park. Beautiful,
Yeah.
huge park, and it's super gorgeous. And we did this small loop. We're like, we'll do this small loop, but it connects to this big green loop, and that'll probably be good for us. You know, the small one going down and connecting. It took us, I swear to God, 2 hours and 15 minutes or something like that go 2.5 miles. And by the time we had reached
Oh
the
wow.
intersection with the other
It's a long
the
time.
other loop, we were like, I was like, Lord, there's no way. It's going to be midnight by the time we make it back to the car if we take the green loop around. So we finished out the blue loop, and it was pretty hilly. There were some pretty big hills and big grades, and there's a bunch of people on skate skis, which is more like slimmer, faster skis that are more like inline skating or ice skating. And then Laura and I were on classic skis, which is like the classic thing where you go like that,
Yeah.
basically. Um, it's more work, it's slower. I don't know why you would do it, but it was fun, and there was a huge hill that I was really proud of that I never fell down. But I was very happy that we did the downhill lesson because I actually felt way more comfortable on my cross country skis from the downhill lesson.
Nice. So you're clearly getting the hang of it. That's really cool. Good
Yes,
to know.
and my goal is to every weekend go out and cross country ski for the foreseeable future because
That's a
it's a
fun
lot of
goal.
fun.
Yeah, no, I mean there's a reason why people ski all the time in the winter time. And there's a reason why it's an Olympic sport. It's a fun pastime. That sounds
And then I'll
awesome.
eventually switch over to skate skis and then add a gun and do biathlon.
That's really cool. That is really cool. What kind of guns do they shoot? Do you know?
They have a very specialized gun. It's like $3,000.
Fuck
I don't know the
that.
caliber or
That's
anything, but it's a
expensive.
very specialized
Is it
gun.
a real gun?
Hmm.
It's wow, that's
I
scary.
think
I
it's
didn't know
like a
that.
22 caliber or something like that.
I
It's a
thought
very
they were
small
shooting like a
caliber.
BB gun, but I guess that would be kind of lame and anticlimactic if it wasn't a real gun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, it derives from,
hunting and military. Maybe
military
not
stuff.
hunting. Yeah. Sick. That's really good news that you guys are having a good time out there, going outside, not just staying inside all the time. And I
Yeah.
assume you're gonna
Good time.
get back to work um, on the movies in person, not just from home soon. I'm guessing.
I'm not at home.
Oh, you're already doing that. Great. That's good
Yeah,
news
I'm at
too.
the offices.
Man, what isn't normal life just so much better?
It's so much easier. So much easier. My nose is killing me. Just it hurts so much from the stupid masks.
Yeah, right? It sucks.
Oh
I
my god,
hate
it's the worst. And
masks
I
so
feel like
much.
my nose is pretty big, but I feel like it's lost millimeters from just being rubbed down.
I think we're all gonna see I think this is kind of depressing to talk about, but I think we're all gonna see a lot of um lung cancer cases in like the next 10 years because of all the cotton particles that we're all breathing in um because
That
of
is
all these
super
masks.
depressing.
That's really sad, but I think it's gonna happen, and it's something that we're not prepared to handle another side effect of this pandemic. Great.
Well,
Woo!
wouldn't China have a lot of lung cancer due to that then?
I don't know. You tell me,
They've been
man.
wearing masks from after SARS forever, right?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I don't know how these things work. You could just not wear a mask, says It's Towers. It's totally safe to do that. You troll. God damn it. You have
Don't
to
wear a
wear a
mask,
mask. Look,
forehead.
it's either die from lung cancer or die from from coronavirus. I'm sure we're breathing it in a lot more than normal, but that's true. That's a good point. Um,
Maybe
SARS,
it's cleaner, actually.
but
Because
also but also, I mean, maybe they're not connecting the dots, right? I'm sure there's a lot of lung cancer problems in China, but maybe that's because of all the pollution that they breathe in. This is a really good transition to our topic, but so maybe I shouldn't go about what I've been doing. Because they look, we've got a lot of concerns here. A lot of Asian countries wear masks frequently. Yeah, that's something to look into, right? It's not just China. It's in Japan and Korea. They wear masks because of in Korea they wear masks because of pollution. I know that much. And I think, I mean, obviously
I would
now,
assume as much in China and
but yeah.
in places like Beijing,
Yeah. Well,
where it's
anyways, as for
pretty dirty.
me, I I don't know. I've been looking into some Keanu Reeves movies. On Valentine's Day, I made my girlfriend watch two Keanu Reeves movies because I made her
They're
a
the
very a
best.
very nice a very nice carbonara. I personally made the guanciale, literally, because I cured the guanciale and I cooked the guanciale and I brought it home and then I cooked the guanciale and then I made a nice carbonara where I made the nice pasta. But I also then made her watch two Keanu Reeves movies. One being Devil's Advocate, because I was like, "Oh, you went to school at UF. You like Gainesville." Keanu Reeves happens to be from Gainesville in that movie, or his character is. Um, and then I realized that this movie is mostly about cheating. And it happened to be a horrible movie to watch on Valentine's Day. Uh, and Al Pacino also in that movie does a fantastic job. Let me put it that way. He plays the devil. Charlize Theron also in the movie. Is it Theron or Theron? I don't know. She has a really great accent in it. Everyone's got a southern accent except for Al Pacino and all the other characters that aren't Charlize Theron and Keanu Reeves. But that movie about the devil, I then was like, well, we gotta watch the other movie about the devil that Keanu Reeves is in. That's not Dracula. We watched Constantine immediately after. Constantine,
Awesome.
I have to
Awesome
say,
movie.
much better movie. Even though I like Al Pacino. Constantine, a much better movie and much more up my alley, and I think honestly up Keanu Reeves' alley because he's a total badass in that movie. He gets to
And
be an
Rachel Weisz
action
is a
star.
babe.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And they sort of leave it open ended as to whether or not there could be a sequel. Obviously, there isn't. I don't think so. Anyways, it's a pretty old movie at this point. The CGI doesn't really hold up too much in that movie, but everything else is really cool, and there's a lot of cool props in it in terms of like the gun that he uses. It's really cool. And Keanu Reeves smokes like 3,000 cigarettes in that movie, so it's great. So I really had a good time watching those movies. I think they're both pretty good movies. And then I played some more Final Fantasy 15 as usual, and I played some Yakuza on stream, which you can go watch me at twitch.tv/YouTubeisgood. And I just got off watching this Nintendo Direct, which I kind of underwhelmed. Like, they haven't had an official Nintendo Direct in 500 days, Yvonne. 500 days since
Wow.
2019. So they sort of announced it yesterday, so there wasn't much time to build up hype, but obviously every Nintendo fan builds up an obnoxious amount of hype, including yours truly.
Of
So
course.
everyone was kind of disappointed. But there are some cool announcements. I'm particularly interested in this triangle strategy game, which I will be playing the demo of later on tonight, probably. It's out right now. But you know what isn't is related to triangle strategy, Yvonne? The triangulation
Triangulation.
of your location, which is the topic of the show, Yvonne. We're going to be talking about GPS, specifically the Chinese version of GPS, which is much different from American GPS that you may be using right now on your phone to locate where you need to go. Yvonne,
Yeah.
tell me a little bit about this topic that you wanted to talk about today.
So this is an interesting topic because we all take GPS for granted as just being the word GPS, meaning like the geo positioning system. But that is the American brand of the navigational system using satellites.
Mm-hmm.
There are at least two others, one of which is the Russian, and the other
Russia,
one, which is
Russia.
the Chinese. We'll be doing a Russia positive podcast later. Don't worry about it. Uh, so the Chinese system, which is Julien, help me out
Oh,
here.
BeiDou.
BeiDou.
BeiDou. It's got
BeiDou.
the you go down and then you go up in terms of tone on both of those, on the E and the O. And then the Wei Xing Dao Hang Xi Tong. I don't know what that actually means.
I'm
So
astounded.
really. Bay, I know what Bay means, it's north. That's all I
So
know.
BeiDou translates roughly to Big Dipper.
Yeah, north. Okay,
uh,
that makes sense.
and it's the Chinese version of the GPS. So GPS because it's controlled by the United States, China could be locked out from it. So in order to combat that scenario, they
Mm-hmm.
launched their own system, which is finally up and running um, to its max capacity, basically.
Nice.
Um, it is
Is it?
a $10 billion investment.
Oh my god.
It was obviously done many more years after GPS. It was like 10 years before it began to be conceived. So it was a little bit, it was designed to be a little bit more accurate, etc., as a higher bandwidth. So the thing about it that is most intriguing is that it can send two-way traffic. So you can understand where you are, but you can also tell others where you are just from this single GPS signal. And that is intriguing because this would allow um, this in combination with the Chinese control over the informational systems of BeiDou means that China could technically know exactly where you are in terms of communication. And these systems are being put into many products like Huawei uh, cell
Phones.
phones and
Yep.
things like that. So it's interesting that people are getting into their hands. Like I know several people who use Huawei devices, for instance, or it did before bans, etc., were enacted by Trump. Um, and Huawei, using this Chinese GPS system, could let the Chinese government trace where you are. This is kind of like, we are open to just telling the world where we are from things like Foursquare to Facebook to Instagram, etc. So how is this any different? Well, because it's a government institution being able to track your movements without necessarily your consult involved. And the further issue is that a lot of devices, for instance, the Apple iPhone, doesn't just have built in the use of GPS system, it can also ping off of the Russian system, GLONASS.
I didn't know that.
Uh,
That's interesting.
so built into this is the idea that as the BeiDou system begins to be more integral and used in more and more products, the idea that iOS or other devices could lock into the BeiDou network, and therefore you would never know that you were using a BeiDou GPS satellite or positioning satellite, but you are tapped into their network and now they know where you are without the consent of necessarily you, because you're just using a Google Maps or something, for instance, or an Apple Maps network.
Yeah, that's
So
interesting.
there's kind of this level of consent that gradually we've gradually moved into being totally okay with. A lot of us post so many things about our lives. Many people stream like hours of their day, whether they're walking around or at their desk. Many people just post a lot to their things. So people are getting more and more used to limited idea of privacy and growing numbers of tracking systems. But this is one that I think is a little bit more subversive, because I don't think a lot of people understand that there are multiple GPS type networks.
Yeah, I honestly didn't know until you told me, but I guess it makes sense that the well, one, that the Chinese would have one, and two, that there are multiple uh GPS systems uh, put up there by nations that would be interested in tracking their people, especially China, and I would assume Russia's interested in that sort of information as well. Of course, America is, but I think what you brought up about iPhone and China, I know that as far, I mean, obviously all Apple's devices are manufactured in China, so maybe there's some underhanded chips being thrown into iPhones that we might not know about. I think that's a little far-fetched in a
Not
conspiracy way,
necessarily,
but
because there were devices that were manufactured in China that I forget now which devices they were, but they basically had an additional system put in that routed information.
so
I
yeah,
forget when the story
no
happened,
shit.
but it was like it took a long time to uncover the what they thought was a defect was in fact a purposeful defect.
That's really scary. So yeah, I think it's, well, I think it's the concern is that it's a slippery slope. It's not that, okay, China's tracking you, or okay, Russia's tracking you is um is particularly bad, for instance, but it's that they're taking the steps to just put, like, they, I don't know how these things are certified, how a GPS chip is certified in your phone. Um, but they're already tracking you, not necessarily you or I, but they're already tracking Huawei devices, for instance, let's say. Um, and the fact that when you purchase that device, you may not even know about this, um, is kind of scary. But that's just one step along the way. They already have their foot in the door towards tracking every other thing about your life, right? And we hear these stories about China. Its tower says it's a slippery slope, but I think we've passed the point of no return. Exactly, like I'm saying, that China's already got that foot through the door, right? They're already tracking your position on, let's say, let's assume Huawei phones. I don't necessarily know that for fact, but let's assume, based off of our knowledge of this BeiDou system, that they're probably putting those GPS chips into Huawei phones. Let's say that. Um, I've heard many stories about Chinese facial tracking systems and how they're rating your social status based off of your actions in life, which is kind of crazy to me. So they're already setting a value to a person based off of their social status or social actions and social interactions with other people, and they're able to control your life in a certain way in China. These I hear stories, I hear say. So if they're
Well,
already
not to
able to do
mention
that,
the intranet that is in China, which is heavily censored,
right? We've talked
and
about that
the
before in the
information
podcast.
systems that are brought there.
Right. You can't go on certain websites that we're able to go on
Facebook.
in America, Facebook being the primary one. So if China has implemented a governmental system that's able to track their people down to probably, I don't know how accurate this is, it looks like probably to the meter. Let's say how it's that accurate. Let's say and they've got billions of people, right? So if they're able to do that, they're able to judge your social status, they're able to know what you're doing on the internet, they're able to do all these things. If a government is so authoritarian and has so much power in that respect, then like I said, it's a slippery slope. One government's able to do that, they're going to implement they're already, right? Like you can buy a Huawei phone. You can't, I guess with Trump's bans, maybe you can't, but there are ways to buy Huawei phones in America, or at least in Canada, I think. So like if they're getting their devices over across seas, then that's a way that they can track you. And so like I said, it is a slippery slope. It's not, nothing is directly threatening you right now, but these systems are already in place so they can act very quickly if there needs to be some sort of control over you in some way. So like that's the slippery slope, right?
Not to
Yeah.
mention how much it could be used to track, for instance, if they had to track political dissidents or people that they don't want or don't like in the
Yeah.
world, um, being able to track the Dalai Lama, etc. I mean, he's a very well known person. Lots of people follow him, but less known political, outspoken people,
Journalists,
etc.
for instance.
Journalists,
Yep.
yeah. So, according to Bloomberg Businessweek, they reported in 2015 that Amazon had been evaluating a company to potentially acquire them. In part of their due diligence, they discovered that nested on the servers that this company created was a microchip that wasn't bigger than a grain of rice that wasn't included on the original boards of the design. The the chip basically allowed to create a stealth doorway into any network that included the altered machines. These altered machines were in Department of Defense data centers, CIA drone operations, onboard Navy warships, etc. So you combine the ability of these kinds of manufacturing planned defects or planned backdoors with the ability for the Chinese government to track any amount of people that they wanted to from internally. Anybody who buys a phone in China would be able to be tracked both by facial recognition systems and by this two-way communication through their navigation BeiDou, which I'm still struggling to remember because I remember I
You can say however
didn't
you want.
pronounce it correctly at first.
No one's gonna
And
fight you.
and you
Maybe the
combine it
government's
with
gonna, maybe you
and
should
you
say it right.
combine it and you're combining it with, other ways of data infiltration, data gathering. I mean, levels of data gathering are dangerous in any scale,
Mm-hmm.
just because that information leads to being able to translate into manipulation or control, and especially in places where there is no uh, ability to conduct any sort of check or balance like there is with the Chinese government. It's a very dangerous thing, and especially when we have government officials like the shitstorm that occurred from Hillary Clinton using unprotected servers, right? But if anybody in the government used an iPhone and then iPhone connected to BeiDou in order to increase the accuracy of their uh, like location services, then anybody who had the an iOS device could be tracked by China, going from anywhere to secret locations to where, like, if the president's staff, etc., was tracking him and they needed to bring him to a secret location, and then they could track where he was going, for instance, in an emergency. There are levels of ways that it could go to the highest position, or even just mass data and mass information gathering, which we treat for granted, but is really like a very dangerous and slippery slope that I think we've just given up our ability to have any level of privacy when anybody could check in on us on any given point, from Google to the Chinese government, and we're like, yeah, that's fine because it doesn't because it's not preventing me from watching this person on Twitch or posting this TikTok. Like, that's not right. We
Yeah.
shouldn't give up that level of comfort of being able to be anonymous at any given point.
That's the scary thing, right? There's no laws in place to actually prevent these companies and governments, I guess, in this case, from tracking our data, and it's all just shoved into a what's it called, a user agreement, um, and or license agreement, I guess, and um, it's really scary that we all just go like, oh, okay, 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 yeah, allow Google to track me, allow Google to send me notifications, or whatever, on your phone, or it, and that you actually need to, in certain situations, right, to click allow Google to use your GPS on your phone in order to use this app, let's say, or whatever it is, whatever it may be. um
I could be using my Run with Hal app, right?
mhm,
So the app that I use to track some of my runs, and it could be giving more information to a Russian satellite network.
yeah.
It could be giving information to a Chinese satellite network, down the line. It could be giving data to somebody else, and it's just like, I I don't know who's gathering my data, what other part of my data, like, they can use in combination to really figure out who and what I am, and it's such, uh, it's a surreal amount of acceptance, because at one level, when I'm saying it, I'm like, yeah, nobody's gonna care what we're talking about right now, because everybody's just accepted it as the cost of doing business on the internet, when really we've given up our rights without ever really recognizing what they were.
Yeah, I think,
And
yeah.
it's
Sorry.
Towers has said that, it's a slippery slope, but I think we've passed the point of no return. And to an extent, I think it's totally right. And furthermore, we're like losing more and more of our ability to counteract that, because we're giving up, for instance, the ability to have class action lawsuits, which we've talked about before, is the one of the only ways that mass consumers can fight against these large
Large
corporations, by
corporations.
binding together. Instead, we have arbitration, where you have to go into an arbitration with the company, but the company hires the people who do the arbitration. So who are they going to side with? And in fact, they almost always side with the company, never with the consumer.
And this, I think this loosely trans ties into how we're all of our governments, whether it be in America, or like, I don't know how old Xi Jinping is in China, but like, because I can't tell. But like, all of our governments are run by kind of old men, right? Um, and all of the technology companies are younger people, um, and they're developing really great things, I think, in some respects, but also their has advanced. Look at the internet in 1990, and then look at it now. Within the course of 30 years, it's advanced like a wildfire. It's been so fast. So, and there's no way that people Joe Biden's age, no offense to Joe Biden, look, he's a better president than Trump. I'm gonna put it down there. All right. There's no
He
way
hasn't done
Joe
much.
Biden, someone, yeah, he hasn't done much, but he's already better. But there's no way someone Joe Biden's age, no offense to people that age, can really keep, and that's why he needs cabinet people that are younger at the very least, can really keep up with this sort of technological advance because he wasn't brought up in an age that was just accessible to him. Like if you think about kids these days, sorry, this age, they're already holding iPhones and they're holding tablets and things. That's what parents give to their kids. So it's like no wonder, like you see these news stories about how these kids are so into computers that and these are good stories that I'm about to, like they'll write a program that solves these interesting problems, or they'll write a website. Like I saw a bunch of, maybe not a bunch, but at least one or two high school age kids were able to write a website that was able to track in America coronavirus cases, for instance, before the fucking government was able to. Before the fucking government was able to track accurate, he was able to write a website that was able to agglomerate coronavirus cases in America before the government was able to track that sort of information. So it's like, yes, we need younger people in our government because they're going to be able to, you know, discern whether or
Understand
not
the
understand what's
problems of our
happening.
day.
Yeah. And also, you know,
But
discern what's going on with, for instance, China's GPS tracking, right?
yeah,
And
and I
bank
think
accounts.
interestingly enough, the I heard this story this morning, and the person who they were interviewing was the commander of Space Force, the
Uh-huh.
major general. So it was very interesting that on the one hand, Netflix released that series that was making fun of Space Force, but on the other hand, people aren't fully understanding the what Trump was attempting to do in terms of establishing Space Force,
Yeah.
in terms of space was never supposed to be militarized. However,
But it's the next frontier.
GPS and other, military satellites, etc., have kind of already begun a kind of militarization, because in today's age, information is a military asset.
Right.
So if the United States have GPS satellites up there that can lock out other people from being able to use GPS, or conversely, that other countries or malignant entities or people who want to attack the United States, um, they could lock out American military forces or companies, et cetera, from global positioning system satellites, and then be able to really bog down or negate any kind of positive advantages that the United States has based on their technological advance in that zone. And that's partially why the U.S. is launching a new system of GPS satellites that are stronger, better accuracy, have greater anti-jamming capabilities. So they're already foreseeing the need to have the ability for satellites to be able to withstand cyber attacks. I
Yeah,
mean, let
it's
alone when we
crazy.
talked about CD Project Red, but imagine having an entire GPS satellite network basically ransomwared. I
Right.
mean,
Could
how
happen.
much shit would crash from
I wouldn't be able to get to work. I don't know
I
how. Yeah, that's a really great point, right? If for instance America was in charge of the only GPS satellites that were up there, uh that means they have the ability to shut them down to some capacity, right? Whether it be physically, they'd have to take them out explosion wise, or maybe they have the ability to just push a button, and by they I mean I guess Joe Biden in this case, but just push a button and it shuts it down. I don't know how these things operate, but I know that they're owned by a governmental organization at the very least, and maintained and operated by one. You can't really put anything up in I think it's, what did we figure out? It was
It's medium orbit.
medium Earth orbit, which
Yeah.
I guess is 10,000 kilometers up. Um, yeah, you can't really put, I guess, like you said, space is not supposed to be militarized, but it's certainly monitored by governments, the powers that be, right? The large companies, the large governments in charge of the world, like China, Russia, America,
There are only
the
so
EU.
many countries that have space
Yeah,
capability, only so many that have the ability to maintain higher than low Earth orbit. And so it's a technological barring and a monetary barring of certain countries from being able to put stuff up there,
it
let
ain't cheap.
alone the monitoring and managing of space debris, etc. Because things are flying around at incredible speeds.
Right. I think the ISS can go around the Earth in a matter of, is it hours or something like that? I don't know.
I don't know.
They're going fucking fast. Which is
You
pretty cool.
thought NASCAR was going in circles fast.
It's pretty cool. I think it's really cool that they're going that fast. But the I don't know. It's crazy how
What
much
I
information is being thrown out there.
Yeah,
And
and I think it's interesting that it's this subversive space race, right? In the 60s and 70s, even into the 80s, when there was a space race between the Soviet Union and the United States, it was front page
oh,
headlines.
it all
Now,
comes back to this, Yvonne,
Ch-
huh?
now China has not only launched but established their rival network, and a lot of people, I would say, in the United States probably don't even realize that there are multiple countries with GPS networks.
Mhm. I didn't until
Um,
you just told me.
yeah, so and it's not like you're an uneducated person or a person who doesn't care
Yeah.
about science and technology. It's just I think it's the diversity of voices that we hear and the lack of sexiness in this version of the space race, where um, it's more enticing to listen about SpaceX, right? Or Blue Origin or these private companies going into space, less enticing to hear about the disbursement of Chinese satellites.
Yeah.
I don't think a lot of people are really screaming to hear about the news of the latest Chinese rocket. Um, but as we go forward, this is going to be the type of thing that's going to cause a lot of tension in either talk about space treaties or
Hmm.
the possibility of how it can affect global shipping, global uh, economies through transit, anything that involves any amount of traveling or GPS necessities. How now that the Chinese have this very thorough network established, what amount of cyber warfare will go into trying to shut down American GPS systems so that theirs is going to be the ones that are more reliable. And companies will want the most reliable system. So if that becomes a different kind of cyber warfare, a different kind of space warfare going into the future, now we're talking about an encroachment on sort of the places where the U.S. holds a very dominant hand. There's GPS and GLONASS, but GLONASS, the Russian one, but I would say that GPS has by far and away more companies relying on it and a greater share of the technology, etc.
Scary to think about what's going into the devices that we carry around with us all the time, right? We some, I guess, like these large companies like Apple and Android and Samsung and Huawei have just sort of, I mean, they made these truly amazing devices, right? That people wanted, and they sold them at sometimes affordable prices, right?
Mm.
And they gathered the amount of things that into the device that are all necessary for us to function, like email, phone, text, whatever it is, all in one place. So they some those capabilities are highly sought after by, say, for instance, an overarching government that wants to know everything about their people. So it's like, yeah, that obviously China wants to have some sort of control over, or the Chinese government wants to have some sort of control over that. And so they invested in companies like Huawei, I assume. And you see, I don't know, you see a lot. I always think the Chinese government is super shady, but um and this is coming from my mom's Chinese, but this is coming from my mom's super paranoid about the Chinese government. And like I joke about it, but it's a real, it's kind of really scary, the amount of power that they have. And I always question their actions, no matter what it is. It's like we talked about it, I think, a couple podcasts ago, where I was getting mad at how they're sending their graduate students over here and then taking them back
Mhm.
to go do research in China. It's like, and not getting jobs here in America. We were talking about how America doesn't really fund science anymore. But China does, because they want all the power. They recognize that technology and science is the way our society is advancing, and they see that maliciously, I think. They see that as, if they can gather all the good scientists, then they can develop all the good technology first, and they can use that to their advantage, such as BeiDou, whatever it is.
Yeah,
Um,
the other, I think in combination with that, it's just that China has realized, the American dollar is going to be where it's going to be. That they can't. I don't think they will subvert the dollar as the global currency. So they, like oil, for instance, when they do international trade, oil is always bought in dollars.
yeah,
So it's the global
that's interesting.
currency. Um, I don't think China thinks that going forward they will be able to make the the Chinese currency the international currency that
Yuan,
trade is conducted in. However, the renminbi. However,
renminbi, RMB, yeah.
however,
Isn't it
they
also
can
yuan?
be leaders in economic production, in science and technology, in other ways, and it's not necessarily a
It is
soft
yuan
power.
also.
Um, but it will be a way in which they can secure themselves as a technological leader and maybe not be the number one and only superpower in the world, but step into that like co-superpower world that we had with the USSR and the USSA during the
Yeah,
Cold War.
I'll tell you. China is a scary place. It is pretty scary. The
It is a
Chinese
radically,
yuan
radically different place than it
anywhere
ever
else.
has before, and one of the it is a unique experience to be a Chinese citizen, no matter what level or of the society that you are in. It's it's a tremendous cultural and historically important country that has a government that has limited checks and balances, and with
Yeah,
an increasing level of kind of socialist capitalist hybrid model that a lot of Chinese citizens are against the opening of the capitalist market there because it's leaving them behind. But that leads to strengthening of the government, which is an interesting thing now that they can gain more and more and more information. And the technology is both a double-edged sword in that they're able to maybe subvert the networks a little more, but at the same time, the Chinese can track them more. The government can track you more. So it's going to be interesting to see how this dual capitalist model, so capitalist communist model, will continue to grow in China, and how both people and companies will react to the Chinese government's movements.
right. It's true. That's a really good closing statement because I don't think it could be better said, buddy. They are it's like a snowballing effect, I would say. The Chinese, I mean, it's like a rather a large rolling panda. Let's go with that. Can't be
Gathering
stopped.
bamboo.
Gathering bamboo. It cannot be stopped, and it's too cute to be stopped. Also, because pandas are fucking cute, and
Yeah.
it's like it's like they make everything for us. they they uh they have some really fantastic food, really great people, but and then behind them all it's like the government just like pushing them forward. So it's like that's how I see
Here's
it.
the facade of why you
Yeah.
should come to China, and here's the background of
Yeah.
don't pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
Exactly. Exactly. That is why you should be paying attention to China and everything that's going on there, including their BeiDou GPS tracking system. Thanks for bringing this topic up to me, Vaughn. I'll be doing some more research on this. Maybe we'll discuss this topic later on in the year as we get some more information about it. We'll see. I think next week or the week after we should do our Keanu Reeves podcast, right? February is a shorter month. So should we
Yeah,
do it? I guess next week is it,
yeah.
right? That's the end of
Next week
February.
is it. That's where we're doing the Keanu pod next week.
So be tuning into that. I don't think he has any. Oh no, he fights it in John Wick 3, right? He fights the Chinese.
Yeah.
I was trying to think of a Keanu Reeves connection to China. I guess that would be it. Yeah, and also, no, not Batman Begins. Batman Begins, he fights the League of Shadows, which are more ninja. Anyways, great.
That's not even
Sorry,
Keanu
I was
Reeves.
thinking. Yeah, I don't know why I
What
thought
is
of that.
happening
I
to
don't know.
you?
I am
Too many
losing
shots
track.
before the
Too many
podcast,
shots.
and
Jesus Christ.
Julien
You
is
guys
going
gotta tune
crazy.
in to this Twitch channel. It's out of control, man. You could spend 1,000 points and make me take a shot, and then that's it. That's it. That's the cool thing about my channel. Anyways, thanks for tuning into the podcast. We'll catch you guys next week. Have a good day.
Bye.